Text boxes are an integral part in how we consume visual novels, or any video game for that matter, but they take on an even greater significance in visual novels, as we visual novel players will glue our eyes to the text for hours on end. Two text box formats are well known across the visual novel community, NVL and AGV. These two have become the dominant styles, often positioned as opposites in what they aim to achieve. NVL mode occupies most of the screen, displaying text in blocks. AGV mode places the text at the bottom, showing only a few lines at a time. From my personal experience playing visual novels, AGV mode encourages a more toned-down use of long descriptions and protracted sentences due to its fast-paced nature. Hence, many light-hearted visual novels use AGV mode because it allows for easy reading without much interruption. Since the previous lines aren't visible without opening the log window, the player is encouraged to just keep going, not overthinking what's happening. However, this doesn't mean AGV mode dumps down a visual novel's plot. Many intricate and complex stories use this format. That said, NVL mode tends to embrace more poetic and elaborate phrasing, likely to compensate for the decreased emphasis on visuals. Since AGV text is part of the UI, it contributes to the game's overall aesthetic, leading developers to be more creative with how they present it. The first White Album installment is a great example. Despite its boring-ass story and flat characters, its UI and sound effects are cathartic. That said, AGV mode does have its drawbacks. Constantly shifting focus between the text box and visuals can be distracting and slow down reading. You might argue that it's similar to watching anime with subtitles, but here's the key difference. In anime, there are natural pauses between dialogue where action is just happening on screen, allowing your eyes to rest and appreciate the visuals. On the other hand, NVL mode allows for a more immersive reading experience. Since the text overlays the background, your peripheral vision is enough to recognize who's talking and where they are. I personally find this method more efficient. I'd go as far as to say NVL mode is more faithful to what visual novels were originally designed to be. Many early visual novels used this format, and since it literally displays words of text, that's likely where the term visual novel comes from. In fact, the studio Leaf, credited with coining the term visual novel, used it in their first game, Shizuku. That said, AGV text boxes existed even earlier. They were already present in PC-88 and PC-98 games like the Portopia Serial Murder Case and Snatcher, long before NVL mode became a standard around the 2000s. In Japanese game terminology, NVL is an abbreviation derived from novel, which focuses heavily on narration with minimal interaction. AGV, on the other hand, has a lot of text, but often includes some gameplay mechanics. This distinction is why in the West we often struggle to differentiate JRPGs from visual novels. In Japan, nearly any game with text-heavy storytelling gets labeled as an AGV game. What Western audiences consider traditional visual novels, which focus on character interaction and mostly include sex scenes, are typically referred to as eroge or galge in Japan. Whether the AGV format or the NVL format is integrated in a visual novel depends on the purpose of the game. If the focus is on deep character introspection and rich narration, NVL is the way to go. If you want to self-insert, smack some chicks, or interact more with characters, AGV is the best suitor. Or you can combine both, leveraging each style's strengths to control pacing. But the trend nowadays tends toward AGV, since most visual novels made in recent years feature this style. That just shows how mutable the term visual novel is and how prone to constant changes it is, due to the trends coming from other genres of the video game industry, which in the last decade or so has been favoring the smoother and the most fast-paced experience instead of depth and deliberation. We could chalk it up to a rising demand for games requiring less attention on the text due to ever-decreasing attention spans, with people wanting their shot of dopamine from mainstream media, which constantly bombards them with brain rot. As a result, it's much more difficult to sit down and read anything at a slower pace, and yet we all subconsciously recognize that taking time to process a story leads to deeper understanding and better memory retention, which is especially important when discussing or debating a favorite piece of media. Furthermore, visual novels have been competing against other video game genres for decades, and the niche aspect of visual novels certainly isn't contributing to its prosperity. The discrepancy of experiences has never been so wide due to technological advances and the player expectations evolving. Some people blame the overall decline of visual novels on gacha games and the shift of VN companies into mobile gaming, moving from one-time game purchases to endless monetization via character duos is more profitable, but it is far from sustainable, as gacha games are notoriously unstable, with record numbers of gacha games shutting down. Embodying a waifu in a boss fight or drawing SSR characters is more gratifying than reading through a 1-hour fight in a visual novel. While video games from other genres made breakthroughs in game design and the technical progresses, the method of storytelling in visual novels hasn't really evolved, but rather festered over the years. The biggest improvement I observed is the drastic upgrade in CGs, the use of emote animations to make character sprites livelier, but otherwise, VN players have been fed the same static sprites and textbox variants for years. Despite all the negative points I touched on, there's a silver lining to it all. Granted, NVL mod was most used around the 2000s and started to drastically fall out of popularity from 2010 onwards, but despite those cultural shifts, the visual novel player base still remains predominantly young and proves that people are still willing to sit through dozens of hours reading if the story is good, and highly anticipated visual novels, including NVL scenes, still come out nowadays, and that is reassuring. We don't know what the future holds for entertainment, even more so for visual novels, and at the end of the day, demand shapes the market, so we have to do everything within our control as visual novel enjoyers, and we need to support games that include them. I'm personally happy that the recent release of Geminism has been successful in the community, and hopefully this is a harbinger of a better fate for the NVL format. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe to be notified about more content from me. Have a nice day.